Hey everyone, it's Brano. I thought I would make this video asking the question, should you listen to unsuccessful developers like myself? I'm making this video before the release of Heal to Death because I don't know what's going to happen, but I thought I would just provide a couple of reasons as to why you may benefit from listening to an unsuccessful developer like myself, like Bite Me Games, like, anyone. Uh, because I understand we're not successful, so why should you listen to us? Well, I think we've got a couple of ideas and perspectives that a successful developer can't quite fully give to you. And so the first reason is we're going through what you're going through. When you are successful, you're no longer really in that same mindset of having to problem solve problems that you barely understand. Like, you've succeeded once, so you kind of have an idea of what the formula is going to be to succeed again. We don't have that. We have to dynamically problem solve and completely shift our perspectives based on what succeeds and, well, what gives us some traction, what doesn't. We don't have like a super clear end goal in sight. We're just trying to do what we can to succeed. And while this does lead us to some not so great destinations, you also get to see dynamic problem solving, which you can probably relate to. Because when you're successful, a lot of people have this my way or the highway approach where it's like, well, I've succeeded, therefore everyone can succeed the same way that I've succeeded. And that's just not the case. You want to everyone's kind of got their own unique formula that they have to find, and that formula can often shift and change as the formula that used to succeed becomes really generic and boring and overdone. You're going to have to think of new ways to succeed, and unsuccessful developers are constantly having to reevaluate, are they doing the right thing? And I don't think that successful developers can quite give you that as much as an unsuccessful developer can. The other thing is that you have to learn through successes and through failures. So successful developers can definitely give you the success aspect, but unsuccessful developers can give you a lot more of what not to do. So if I do something and it's a big mistake, I'm gonna share it because it's a good video for content. And you're going to be able to get like a good balanced approach by watching both successful and unsuccessful developers, of kind of like, here are some things that can succeed, here are some things that don't succeed, and you can kind of work out, well, you get a much better idea of how to think about video game developments and when you've seen both success and failure. This also gives you a much more realistic, like watching some unsuccessful developers, especially if you're not involving yourself in a game dev community, and you should involve yourself into a game dev community, but if you're not, watching unsuccessful developers is going to give you a much more realistic point of view of what video game development is for the vast majority of people who commit a lot of time to it. You know, there's a lot of survivorship bias in video game development. Before you get like into video game development, you're only going to really know about the big successful games, the big indie hits, incredibly niche stuff that caters to you, and the big failures. Like, if there is 18,000 games releasing on Steam, you're only going to hear about maybe 100 or 200 of them. You don't know what the other 17,800 games that have released in 2024 are. And it's only when you start participating in game development that you begin to realize, oh, there's a lot more failure than I expected. And I guess like when you look at an unsuccessful developer, you're going to see someone who is consistently trying their best. They're consistently making games, they're consistently improving, and you realize that, oh, they're at a reasonably high bar of quality. I need to get above that bar of quality. And so that kind of gives you a much more realistic perspective of what you need to do in order to succeed in video game development. Now, the final point that unsuccessful developers can give, or the final benefit, is that the criticisms that can apply to the unsuccessful developer can very easily apply to you. One of the examples I'm going to give is with Bite Me Games and their Songs of Everjade. So I was making Heal to Death and I was doing all the art by myself, and it was ugly. But I'm very much into mechanics, and I don't mind this like crappy low poly art style, but a lot of people hated it, and I got told that it looks ugly by a lot of different people. It was only when I started to see Bite Me Games Song of Everjade and I had the exact same thoughts and their style was much better. I'm like, this is super generic and boring. And then I kind of realized, oh, all of the criticisms that they're getting are like twice as bad towards my game. Like, my game is actively just ugly. Their game is just really bland and generic looking. And at that point I realized I don't want to end up like Bite Me Games. I'm going to team up with an artist, and she's done an amazing job making the game look a lot prettier than it would have been otherwise. There's still a lot of my art within the game that will make it to release. In fact, there's a ton of it. But at the very least, if I had not watched Bite Me Games and I had not seen their failure that was Songs of Everjade, Heal to Death would have been significantly worse. And I mean, it's kind of an amusing way to end the video, I guess, which is just like, oh, I didn't want to end up like Bite Me Games, but you need to learn through successes and through failures. If you only watch successful people, you can try to emulate the way that they succeed, but they've got a particular formula that works for them, and you don't know what other advantages they have. Where, yeah, with unsuccessful developers, it's just like, bro, I may have to restart everything from scratch. I may have to reset my brain and do game dev in a completely different way because my approach has not worked. That's going to get you to a winning formula sooner rather than later. So in no way is this video to say that you shouldn't watch successful developers. You want to watch successful developers. You want to understand how they succeeded, and how they succeeded can apply to you. But there is benefit to watching unsuccessful developers as well, and that's the point I want to give. Learn from everyone, because even the people who don't seem to have a lot going for them will have a nugget of wisdom that can greatly enlighten your life. Anyway, that's it for me. Bye.